11 Sinister small-town legends revealed, terrifying tales of haunted secrets and cursed encounters. The whispers of Hollow Creek echoed in Jessica's ears as she steered her beat-up sedan into the town. It looked like a postcard from the past, with its white picket fences and flourishing flower gardens, a far cry from the chaotic city they had fled. She could almost taste the safety in the air, but deep down, a stomach-churning dread lurked. Something wicked was waiting just beneath the surface of this idyllic town. It all started when Noah, her 8-year-old son, discovered an abandoned playground while digging through the thick overgrowing grass. The rusting swings creaked with ghostly mourns, seen only through the shadow of twilight. Noah, innocent and cheerful, spun tales about the lost children who played there. They disappeared, Mom. Just like the stories. Each word sent shivers down Jessica's spine as the thrill of folklore twisted into something darker, something real. The town's legends about children vanishing began to seep into her mind, and she tried shaking it off as just kids' imaginations running wild. But then, she started seeing them: the flickering lights in the distance, laughter echoing through the trees late at night, cold drafts that made her hair stand on end. Were those whispers merely the murmur of the wind, or were they the cries of what had been lost? Her neighbor, Mr. Patterson, often sat on his porch, his gaze fixed on Noah with an unsettling intensity that made Jessica's skin crawl. He wore a smile that never quite reached his eyes, full of unspoken secrets. When she overheard hushed conversations among the locals, mentioning his name in connection to disappearances, her mind raced. Just local myths, they chuckled dismissively, yet she could feel the danger growing. He's just a harmless old man, her rational mind countered. But dismissing her instincts was growing harder by the day. An unease settled in her gut, and she found herself clutching Noah tighter, desperate to keep the dark shadows at bay. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. That night, as darkness enveloped the house, she lay in bed, drenched in sweat, her heart racing. Noah's room was eerily silent, the cheerful laughter of days past now replaced by a suffocating stillness. When she ventured in, she found him staring blankly at a corner, his usually bright eyes dull, fixed on something she couldn't see. "What's wrong, honey?" she whispered, stepping closer, her body tensing. But instead of his usual chatter, the air thickened, and he merely turned to her with a forlorn expression. A cold shiver ran down her spine when she caught sight of a tattered doll lying in his toy box, reminiscent of the lost soul from the stories. Its button eyes seemed to glisten in the dark, and she knew, deep down, that something was terribly wrong. The warmth of the quaint town turned to ice around her, unveiling the truth hidden beneath the surface. Hollow Creek was no safe haven, it was a trap woven from nightmares. She realized with dread, what if the true horror came from the one person she loved the most? What if Noah was drawn to the darkness, wittingly or unwittingly, and she was guarded by nothing more than illusions? As she stared into his eyes, she was met with a silence that spoke volumes, and the shadows watched, waiting for the moment to pounce. The day broke like a bad dream, gray clouds rolling over Hollow Creek. Jessica's heart sank as she watched Noah through the window, playing near the edge of the woods. She wanted to call him back, but an invisible weight pressed on her chest, holding her voice captive. The trees loomed like guards, their gnarled branches reaching out, almost beckoning him closer. Tension coiled in her stomach. She had to confront Mr. Patterson. The whispers around town weren't just idle chatter, they were warnings. She pushed aside the fear gnawing at her as she walked toward his porch, unsure of what lay ahead, each step echoing her anxiety. The old man was sitting in his usual spot, his eyes still fixed on the children playing in the distance. Today, his smile seemed wider, more unsettling. "Good morning, Jessica," he greeted, a tone wrapped in embedded malice. Mr. Patterson, I'm concerned about Noah and the stories, she said carefully, her voice trembling despite her best efforts. That he chuckled, a chilling sound that came from somewhere deep within. The stories, my dear, have a way of getting under your skin. But children, they listen to everything. His gaze shifted, lingering too long on Noah. Are you saying he believes them? Jessica pressed, desperation creeping in. Children have an innocence we adults tend to lose, he mused, his finger tapping a rhythm on the arm of his chair. They see what we can't. She felt a sick flutter in her gut. What do you mean? He leaned in closer, his voice soft and dangerous. There are places in these woods, places where shadows dwell. Sometimes they invite children to play. Once they join, it's very hard to return. She staggered back, her thoughts racing. You're scaring me. Good, he whispered, leaning forward with glee. Fear can be a protective cloak or a wonderful guide to the truth. She turned, breaking the conversation abruptly, nearly stumbling as her feet carried her back home. That unease coiled tighter as she glanced back, his stare bore into her, a wicked semblance of satisfaction lining his smile. Time felt like it had warped as night crept back in again. A chill settled around the house, and Jessica found herself pacing in the dim hallway, contemplating what to do. Noah had grown distant, too quiet, and the doll in the corner loomed ever larger in her mind. She had to find a way to protect him, but any plans felt like they were slipping through her fingers like sand. Suddenly, Noah appeared, standing in the doorway to the kitchen. His eyes were glassy, as if he were seeing something behind her, something dreadful. Mom, please don't be mad. I found a friend, he said softly, his voice barely above a whisper. The air around them grew cold, the shadows shifting like living things. Who? She asked, the word barely escaping her lips. Noah didn't answer, but pointed. Jessica turned slowly to look, her heart hammering in her chest as her breath caught in her throat. There in the dim light was the tattered doll, but now it stood upright, seemingly alive, its button eyes glinting with an ominous chill. Mom, it wants to play, Noah said, a smile creeping across his face that chilled her to the core. Instinct kicked in. Noah, come here. She shouted, but he was lost in a trance, stepping closer to the doll that seemed to beckon him with unseen threads. The laughter echoed outside, warped and distorted, rising with a sinister energy. The woods held their breath, the darkness pulsing with an unseen force, and she knew she was racing against time. She had to break whatever spell gripped Noah before it consumed him whole, but as she moved to pull him back, the lights flickered, plunging the house into an unnerving darkness. The whispers grew louder, drowning out her thoughts, suffocating hope. She could feel the air thicken as something hunched deep within the shadows took its cue, ready to remind her of a terrifying truth. The true horror of Hollow Creek was just beginning. What had she unleashed? And would she be able to save her son from the clutches of an ancient darkness? Jessica's heart raced. She could barely breathe as the darkness engulfed her. The flickering lights cast chaotic shadows, painting the walls with grotesque shapes. The whispers swirled around her, taunting and sinister, as if the house itself was alive and relishing her fear. Noah! She screamed, her voice trembling as she fought to break through the fog of the unknown. But he stood there, a young boy enchanted by something far darker than she could understand. The doll's eyes seemed to gleam with a pulse of their own. It looked less like a toy and more like a sentinel, eager to claim another unsuspecting victim. She lunged forward, every muscle in her body protesting. Noah, come to me. She pleaded, desperation lacing her voice. But he remained fixated, an almost unnatural calm draping over him like a shroud. Mom, it wants to show me the fun things, he murmured, a sweetness to his tone that sliced through her with cold dread. She reached out, fingers brushing against his shoulder. A jolt of ice shot through her as she touched him. It felt wrong, as if the warmth of her son had been replaced with something hollow. That's not fun, Noah. It's dangerous. The whispers surged, drowning out her words. They twisted through the air with the insistence of an oncoming storm, pulling at her sanity. She could feel something lurking behind her, a presence gathering strength as the shadows deepened. Was it alive? Was it waiting just for a moment to strike? With a primal scream, she yanked Noah back, breaking the fragile trance. He stumbled, eyes wide and horrified as reality seemed to snap back into focus. "Mom!" he whimpered, confusion washing over his features. "Run!" Jessica shouted, shoving him towards the hallway. She spun around, facing the dark-tinged doll that somehow felt more menacing than before. The smile painted on its worn face no longer looked playful, it was a knowing grin, as though it was aware of her deepest fears. Suddenly, the door to the kitchen slammed shut, the sound echoing like a death knell. A swift gust of wind sent chills through her, causing her to clench her teeth as dread pooled in her stomach. "What is happening?" she whispered to herself, panic seeping in. "Noah, stay close to me," she barked, yanking him near as they pressed against the wall. In an absurd flash of clarity, she considered the old man's words. Places where shadows dwell. Noah clutched onto her with trembling hands, looking up at her with wide, innocent eyes. "I don't want to go back there, Mom." "Not to the woods." Before Jessica could answer, a low growl erupted from the shadows, resonating in her bones. The clattering of dishes echoed from the kitchen, like a macabre symphony played behind a veil. She felt a primal urge to flee, but a chilling sensation tethered her in place, like chains shackled to the floor. "I won't let it take you," she vowed, the resolve hardening in her voice, but as she peered into the darkness, she saw shapes uncoiling. The shadows seemed to pulse, eager to break free. The doll's laughter rang sweetly in her ears, echoing her childhood fears, igniting long-buried memories of being lost in the woods, memories she had long tried to bury. "Jessica." The voice was intimate and familiar, laced with an eerie calm. It molded around her, gripping her neck like a noose. "Who is there?" she called into the dark, her heart a thunderous roar in her ears. Silence stretched out, and for a brief second, she thought she might be free. But then she caught the faintest movement, a flicker of something reaching toward her, something unearthly, something that wanted her back. "Noah, don't look!" she screamed, covering his eyes with her hand. As she turned to flee, the walls seemed to twist and dissolve, the cowardice of her past rising to meet her. There was only time to run, but where to? The house closed in like a predator, hungry for her fear, and she could feel the forest pulling at everything she held dear. As they burst through the nearest door, Jessica had one last look back at the doll. It stood there, no longer a mere plaything, but a harbinger of terror, beckoning her into the abyss. What awaited them in the world beyond the door? Would the shadows follow? And did they already have Noah's heart in their grasp? The moment they crossed the threshold, the oppressive weight of the house lifted, but the world outside felt no less threatening. The moon hung low, casting eerie silver beams over the landscape, turning the trees into twisted, skeletal figures. Shadows danced amongst the branches, whispering secrets of things lost to the darkness. Jessica took a deep breath, grounding herself. "Noah, we need to get to the car," she urged, but the boy was still dazed, glancing back at their haunted home as if it had the answers to questions he didn't even know he had. "Mom, it's so dark," he said, his voice quivering. Grabbing his hand, she pulled him along. "Stay close." She kept her eyes forward, fighting the urge to look back. The road ahead felt alive, as if it too was filled with memories that clung to the air, her childhood laughter, her mother's warnings about the very woods they now faced. They hurried down the path, crunching leaves underfoot. Suddenly, a low, guttural growl echoed from behind, freezing them in their tracks. Jessica's heart slammed against her ribcage. This wasn't the playful spirit of the doll. This was something primal, raw, and it was hunting. "We have to keep moving," she hissed, dragging Noah forward. He stumbled but kept pace, his breaths quick and shallow. The whispers that had haunted her in the house crept back in, curling around her ears like smoke. "Jessica, come back to us." It was the same intimate voice, hauntingly familiar, yet twisted as if the shadows were toying with her. She shoved it out of her mind. That voice belonged to the past one she'd buried deep, but behind them, something stirred. Jessica dared a glance back, heart plummeting at the sight of an ever-expanding darkness pouring out of the house like oil slicked across water. It was a mass of shadows, writhing, stretching and oozing, an entity seeking something, or someone. "Noah, run! Now!" She screamed as the shadows lunged forward, tendrils reaching for her son like clammy hands. They sprinted down the path, twigs snapping beneath their feet. The air felt thicker with every step, like they were running through treacle instead of soil. "Mom, I'm scared." "What is it?" Noah cried, but she could only focus on the blur ahead, the car's outline standing like a sentinel on the horizon. "Just keep running." As they neared the car, Jessica fumbled for the keys, heart pounding, sweat trickling down her back. She could sense the shadows growing closer, could almost feel their breath on her neck. She finally snatched the keys from her pocket, hands trembling violently as she inserted them into the lock. The door creaked open, and she rushed Noah inside, slamming it shut, as if that could shield them from the nightmare clawing at their reality. But the darkness didn't relent. It pressed against the car, thick and suffocating, claws scraping against the windows while the growling grew louder, more frantic. It was like the voice, echoing in a frenzy, an anguished symphony of despair. "No, no!" She gasped, gripping the steering wheel, wheeling around. "What do you want?" The windows rattled, shadows clawing to get in. Suddenly, she caught sight of a face in the rearview mirror. A silhouette formed from the night, eyes burning with fury and longing. It looked like Noah, but distorted, twisted into something grotesque that hurt to look at. "Take us back," it whispered, a voice echoing through her mind, weaving into her very being. "No!" She screamed, her foot slamming down on the accelerator. The tires screeched as they tore away from the suffocating darkness. But as she tore down the road, questions gnawed at her. Would they ever escape the pull of the woods? What twisted magic had claimed Noah, and was he still truly her son, or a twisted echo of what he once was? As the trees whipped by in a blur, Jessica felt dread settle in her gut. A chilling reality stalked them, the shadows followed, not just in the physical sense but clinging to their very essence, and something more awaited them further down the road. What would happen when the shadows finally closed in? Would they be forced to confront what they had left behind? And was it too late to save Noah? The car's engine roared as Jessica sped down the empty road, tires skidding against the worn asphalt. Darkness enveloped them, devouring the faint light cast by the old headlights. The shadows pulled at the corners of her vision, teasing her with whispers that felt like nails against her skin. A part of her wanted to believe that if they just kept driving, they could outrun the terrors that chased them, but the knot in her stomach tightened with every passing second. "Noah, hold on!" she shouted, glancing at him. He was pale, his wide eyes filled with confusion and fear, a mirror of her own torment. She wished she could reassure him, tell him everything would be okay, but the growling sound behind them grew louder, more demanding. It was a low thrum that vibrated through the car, resonating with every heartbeat, and seeping into the very bones of the vehicle. "Mom, I don't want to go back there," he cried, his voice cracking. It was the honest fear of a child who could sense the unexplainable, the dread that settled heavily in the air between them. "I know, baby, I know. But we have to keep going," she replied, trying to inject strength into her tone. "We'll find help. We'll be okay." The words felt hollow, an empty promise echoing in the vast darkness surrounding them. Then suddenly, a loud thud shook the car, sending her heart spiraling into her throat. The rearview mirror reflected a mass of darkness that slammed against the back window, leaving a web of jagged cracks like ice spreading across glass. She gasped, the sight twisting her insides. "Stay down!" she yelled, feeling a surge of panic. As she strained to focus ahead, the road twisted and turned like a serpentine creature, barely illuminated by their headlights. And there up ahead she saw a solitary figure standing in the middle of the road. Unyielding, it was cloaked in a tattered black shroud that flapped against the thrumming wind. Jessica's heart hammered wildly, a sensation surged through her veins. Was it a mirage or something more sinister waiting for them? "Noah, cover your eyes!" she screamed as she swerved, her instincts screaming that this figure was not a mere passerby but a harbinger of doom. The car veered dangerously close to the tree line as the ghostly silhouette glided toward them, standing there, arms stretched wide, beckoning. That a sharp jolt sent the vehicle shaking as Jessica wrestled with the wheel, fear clawing at her throat. But as she looked back, Noah's small, fearful face morphed into that same twisted visage from the rearview mirror, a grotesque echo of her son. "Mom!" it wailed, the voice a haunting mimicry, wrapping around her heart like a vice. Was this truly her Noah, pleading for help, or something darker trying to drag her into the abyss? "Get away from him!" she screamed, unfurling the car's power as she pressed the gas to the floor, sending them barreling past the figure that dissipated into the night as if it had never existed. But the shadows surged from all sides, their howls almost human, clawing desperately at the sides of the car, reaching through the cracks, searching for a way to come in. "Mom! I don't want this!" Noah sobbed, and the anguish in his voice reverberated inside her like a death knell. "I want to let them take you," she whispered fiercely, fists tightening around the wheel. Tears streamed down her face. She didn't know if she was crying for him, the boy she feared was lost, or for herself, the mother losing her grip on reality. Ahead, a fork in the road emerged, one path illuminated by flickering street lamps, the other swallowed in a consuming void. She could hear the shadows whispering, desperate and pleading, luring her toward the darkness. The chilling finality of the moment sank in. Did she take the safe, lighted road that might lead to salvation, or was the darkness the only road left for them, an inevitable confrontation with something that hungered for their souls? With a heavy heart, Jessica chose. The world outside pulsed with anticipation, shadows closing in as she made her decision, inching toward an unknown fate. Was there any way back from the brink? Or would that choice seal their doom for eternity? The moment Jessica's tires screeched onto the well-lit road, a jolt of relief surged through her. Safety was just a heartbeat away. Yet the whispers didn't stop. They intensified, curling around each light post like dark tendrils, grasping at any remnants of hope she had. "Noah, it's okay," she said, forcing a smile, her voice quaking. The shadows seemed to growl in discontent, the air thick with mounting dread. The far-off streetlights flickered, casting eerie shapes that twisted like fingers beckoning her back. Back to the claustrophobia of that suffocating darkness. "What if they follow us?" Noah asked, his small voice barely a whisper over the roar of the engine. "They won't," she assured, though doubt gnawed at her stomach. The shadows were relentless, that twisted figure in the road could not be the last. No, they would be back, and who knew how many more lurked just beyond her line of sight. She pressed the gas harder, trying to gain distance from the malevolence of the night. Each pulse of the engine filled her with adrenaline but also dread, of fear that something was waiting for them on the road ahead. They sped past the flickering lights until those too began to flicker out. "Mom! Where are the houses?" Noah screamed, panic rising in his voice. The glowing orbs that signified safety were dwindling, and they were surrounded again by dark emptiness punctuated only by the faint glow of their headlights. The palpable silence was deafening, an ominous reminder of the night's undisclosed horrors. "Stay with me, Noah. We'll find a place, I promise," she choked out, her knuckles white against the steering wheel, skin clammy with sweat. She framed a plan in the thoughts racing through her frayed mind. There had to be a town, a place where light wouldn't fade, wouldn't erratically choke and die. But as she glanced at the rearview mirror, the darkness was directly behind them again, a smothering mass that grew relentless. It was racing, reaching just behind. That a violent shudder rattled the car, and Jessica's hopeful facade cracked. What was that? She gasped as the steering wheel jerked in her grip. Then she realized, with stark horror, that the road was falling away, littered with debris and loose gravel. She swerved to avoid it, but not before hitting something, a harsh scrape against the undercarriage that jolted her heart into overdrive. "Mom!" Noah yelled again, his eyes wide with terror. "Hold on, baby!" She shouted back, struggling to gain control as she veered from one side to another, the tires slipping dangerously close to the edge of a drop-off. Panic clawed at her throat. "Get out!" A voice suddenly resonated from nowhere, a chilling whisper layered with urgency. There, in the rearview mirror, she caught a glimpse of that faceless figure again, merged with the shadows that clawed at her. It was no longer a mere specter in the distance but something much closer, almost suffocating in its intent. "How do you know my name?" She shouted at the mirror, her voice trembling. "Your son is part of the horror," it spoke again, low and guttural. A soul-stirring dread filled her. How could it know? A new fear gripped her. Could it sense what lay within the depths of her mind? The fears she dared not voice. The past, tangled in secrets and regret. No! She shrieked, shaking her head fiercely, fighting the encroaching shadows with whatever strength she could muster. Noah was hers. She would not let them take him. The road narrowed ahead, a fork appearing once more, one side dark and foreboding, the other glimmering faintly as if someone had ignited a candle at the end of a long tunnel. A loud crack echoed through the air, a sound like the breaking of laws, time, and sanity. In that instant, as Noah screamed in terror beside her, she faced the impossible choice again: darkness or light, fear or hope. With tears streaming down her face, she knew she had to decide. But a new shadow loomed, creeping into her mind, whispering of despair. Was there truly any escape from the fate they had run from, or had the past already caught up with them? She gripped the wheel tighter, heart throttling against her ribcage. The decision was hers alone. Was running away a chance to survive or simply a step toward deeper calamity? And then, as the shadows reared up to envelop them, the choice began to unravel before her. A blinding flash illuminated the road just ahead, forcing Jessica to squint through the glare. In that instant, it felt as though time froze, every sound muted, every breath suspended. The headlights cast a stark contrast against the growing darkness, revealing shadows that crept at the fringes of her vision like a tide pulling back before a wave crashes. "Mom!" "The light!" Noah shouted, pointing wildly. Jessica squinted, struggling to catch a glimpse of what he saw. The dull glow flickered again, almost beckoning her, a haunting dance of illumination marked by a sense of foreboding. I see it." She stammered, her grip tightening on the wheel. She decided. Light would guide them out of this nightmare. The engine roared defiantly as she pressed harder on the accelerator. The car shot down the dim path toward the light, but with each passing second, the shadows behind them began to close in, a dark wave surging as if the night itself were alive. Noah whimpered softly beside her. "Keep your eyes on the light, buddy. We're almost there," she urged, voice rising in an attempt to drown out the whispers creeping back into her mind. That as they approached, the light resolved into a sign, weathered and cracked: "Welcome to Grand Hollow." The name sent a jolt through her. There was something about this place, an unshakable sense that it was not just any town, it was a trap. "Mom, what if?" Noah's voice trailed off, a lump forming in his throat. "Don't think about it," she snapped, trying to shake off her own trepidation. "We'll find help." But as she entered the town, the oppressive weight of silence engulfed them. The streets were eerily deserted, shadows stretching unnaturally long beneath the dim streetlights, flickering in a rhythm that felt almost malicious. From the corner of her eye, she spotted something moving, a dark figure slinking behind a nearby building. Her heart raced, pumping adrenaline throughout her body. "Did you see that?" Jessica gasped, eyes darting toward the movement. "See what?" Noah asked, his voice barely a whisper, trembling. She didn't know how to explain. "There was something over there." "Mom, please." Suddenly, all the streetlights flickered, one after another, plunging the town into a heart-stopping darkness. The car lights shone brighter, illuminating nothing but blackened shapes that loomed like phantoms. "Mom!" Noah cried, his small hands clutching the seat. "Shoo! We need to be quiet." She realized, panic spreading as chilling as the shadows. Was that a whisper she heard? Yes, it was. Jessica, Jessica, the voice pulsed through her, low and sibilant, curling into her ears like smoke. Yet she knew it wasn't just a figment of her imagination. It felt real. No. She shouted, and slammed her hands against the steering wheel, sending the car into a spin. But even as they swung around, it became painfully clear the shadows weren't just remnants of the night, they were the night. They pulsed and surged around them, hungry tendrils reaching toward the vehicle, grasping at her and Noah. Mom! What is happening? Noah screamed, tears streaming down his cheeks. I don't know. I don't know. She screamed back, panic clawing at her throat. The darkness seeped in through the windows, wrapping around Jessica's mind, tightening like a noose. Desperation surged, the town's name echoed in her mind, Grand Hollow. With each syllable, something tugged deeper, a memory, a warning. Then, as if orchestrated, the whispers escalated, a cacophony spilling forth, leave here. They can't help you, no one comes back, what are you? Jessica screamed, her voice cracking in sheer terror. The car's headlights flickered and dimmed as the shadows moved closer, nearly suffocating her resolve, and there, amidst the chaos, she saw a glimpse of it, a figure emerged from the darkness, with a familiar silhouette. It drew closer, step by slow step, revealing features she thought she had buried long ago. Everything is already lost, Jessica, it said, its voice smooth as silk, yet full of malice. Jessica's breath hitched as she clutched Noah tighter. Who was this? What was happening? The figure grinned, its face twisting into an impossibly wide smile. The real horror is just beginning. The last semblance of light flickered out. In that chilling moment of engulfing blackness, with nothing left to cling to, an even darker truth began to unravel what fate awaited them in Grand Hollow. The silence weighed like a lead blanket, suffocating and thick. Jessica felt her heart pounding in her ears, drowning out the whispers. She instinctively turned to Noah, his eyes wide and glistening with terror. We need to get out of here, Jessica whispered, her voice trembling. There was no light, no comfort to guide them now, just the darkness wrapping around them like a shroud. The air felt charged, it was alive with a pulse that throbbed through the car. Shadows twisted in the corners of her vision, warping into grotesque shapes that seemed to mock her every instinct to flee. Hold tight, buddy, she said, her resolve faltering as the world outside the car window loomed ominous and unfathomable. With shaking fingers, she cranked the ignition, praying the engine would roar back to life. Instead, it sputtered like a dying breath. Panic surged. Simon, Simon. She pleaded, pumping the gas pedal. A final cough emitted from the engine as it fell silent, leaving them marooned in a sea of malevolent darkness, the windows fogged with the heat of their breaths, each exhale a reminder of their precarious situation. Jessica felt a shiver race up her spine as she turned her head toward the sound she could no longer ignore, the soft crunch of footsteps closing in. Mom! I'm scared. Noah whimpered, his small voice quaking like dry leaves in the wind. Just stay quiet, she hissed, her eyes darting around. Stay low. The shadows shifted outside the vehicle, coalescing into a more defined shape, dark and imposing. It started as a figure, a silhouette framed by the faint outline of a streetlight, then stretched and warped, like something unnatural pulling itself into being. I can help you, it hissed, the guttural voice scraping across her nerves, a siren call laced with venom. All you have to do is listen. No. Jessica shouted, her heart hammering. Get away from us. But the being only laughed, a sound so chilling it made her skin crawl. Its presence radiated an intoxicating allure, a twisted version of a rescue that threatened to drag them down further into despair. Let me show you what this town really offers. Knowledge, power, freedom. It gestured toward the depths of the night, hinting at secrets veiled within shadowed corners and unmarked paths. You can stay forever, Jessica. Noah can too. Noah is coming with me. She threatened, though the conviction rang hollow, shaking with each breath she took. Not if you don't let him go first. A sudden silence enveloped them. The world outside the car seemed to hold its breath, waiting. Jessica felt the cold grip of fear tightening around her chest. What do you want from us? Just as the question escaped her lips, the figure lunged forward, face twisting, revealing dark, hollow eyes that swallowed the light. To show you everything. Time stretched in that instant, and all she could think of was Noah, shoulders hunched, hands trembling. Jessica clung to her son, an instinctive need to shield him from the encroaching nightmare. Mom, I don't want to know. He cried, but the words were lost, swallowed by the terror swirling around them. Suddenly, the headlights flickered back to life, bathing the wraith-like figure in a harsh glow, the gaunt, hollow face twisting in anguish. It recoiled, a hiss escaping its lips, turning like a shadow smothered by light. Not a chance it spat, but the figure was already fading, retreating into the depths of darkness, leaving only echoes of its voice lingering like smoke in the air. But the quiet soon turned volatile. As the tension receded, a rumbling began within the earth, a shake felt deep in her bones. The asphalt cracked, and fissures spidered outward as if the town itself was coming apart at the seams. Mom, we need to go. Noah cried, panic igniting in his eyes. Something in Jessica snapped. She swung the door open, the night air slashing across her skin like glass. Run! She commanded, dragging Noah free, their feet pounding against the pavement. The world around them morphed into chaos. Shadows darted, forming and dissolving into fresh horrors. As they ran deeper into Grand Hollow, the whispers returned, swirling around her like a storm, echoing reminders of the lost souls beckoning from the fringes of the darkness. Join us, it's safer here, you can't escape. The shadows grew bolder, reaching for her as if to pull her back. Jessica stumbled, tears of fear and fury streaming down her face. Hold on, Noah. Don't let go. But their flight only revealed more horrors unveiled, with danger lurking behind every twisted building and patch of shadow. The reality of their situation slammed into her like a blow. She realized they weren't just trapped, they were being drawn deeper into whatever darkness haunted these streets. What would the town reveal next? What lay behind those flickering streetlights, and would they ever find a way out of Grand Hollow unharmed? Desperation surged within her chest as they pressed on, battling not just the shadows, but the monstrous truth waiting to be uncovered. Their feet pounded against the unforgiving asphalt, echoes of their frantic escapade swallowed by the darkness that lurked just beyond the narrow beam of their wavering hope. Jessica's breath hitched in her throat as she glanced back, her heart pounding, almost deafening in the night. The shadows writhed and slithered, figures that had once been mere distortions now stood defiantly, cloaked in a blackened void. Please, just keep running. She urged Noah, tugging him along. Each step took them further into the heart of the unknown, but ahead lay only more unlit roads and menacing shapes. She had no plan, no clear direction, all she could rely on was instinct. Every corner turned felt like a gamble to flee from unseen threats creeping ever closer. The chilling whispers wrapped around them again, words like icy fingers, coaxing and taunting, come back, it's where you belong. No. She cried into the night, desperation transforming her voice into a raw scream. But the voices grew louder, feeding on her fear, as if the very fabric of Grand Hollow shimmered with malignant energy. The streetlights blinked in and out, sporadically casting flickering patches of light that only served to illuminate more shadows. Dark tendrils seemed to pulse, reaching toward her, eager to drag them back into the suffocating embrace of their past. Mom! Noah whined, his breathing shallow and labored. What is happening? I'm scared. We'll be okay. Just stay close. Jessica forced the lie through clenched teeth. Keep moving. Suddenly, a crash shattered the night, a noise like bones cracking underfoot. Jessica froze, dread flooding her veins. What was that? A figure toppled from a nearby alleyway, arms and legs twisted at unnatural angles, dragging itself toward them, a horrid parody of life. The face was obscured, but it wore a smile, no, a grimace impossibly wide. A sound like nails on a chalkboard vibrated through the air as it whispered, stay, and be one of us. No. Jessica shouted, a surge of adrenaline propelling her forward again. As they dashed past, she caught a brief glimpse of its eyes, dark pools that reflected anguish and despair, swirling with endless stories of those who had presumably met their fate in this cursed town. Noah tugged at her hand. I don't want to end up like that. Neither do we, she replied, the truth burning on her tongue. We're getting out. But the last word echoed with uncertainty. Then, ahead, she spotted a dilapidated gas station, the nostalgic glow of an old neon sign buzzing fitfully. A flicker of hope ignited in her chest, and she pulled Noah faster, veering toward the light's uncertain promise. We can hide there. As they rushed through the door, the aged bell chimed, a haunting tone resonating in the small, cramped space. Dust motes danced in their frantic entrance. The room reeked of stale smoke and oil, memories embedded in the peeling walls. Jessica frantically looked around. There had to be something, an exit, a weapon, any sign of safety. The shelves were half empty, littered with rusting cans long past their sell-by dates. A gas station map hung crookedly on the wall, a relic that might hold some escape route. But Noah's fearful whimper pulled her attention back. Mom, look! He pointed to the corner, where a darkened figure sat hunched over, a tattered hood masking its features. A faded, disfigured gas mask obscured any glimpse of familiarity, eyes hidden, but Jessica could feel the weight of an unseen gaze boring into her. Who are you? She stuttered. Lost, it rasped, its voice a damp whisper like wet leaves in autumn. We are all lost here. You came to find the truth, didn't you? No. Jessica stepped back, gripping Noah's hand tightly. We just want to leave. The figure's head tilted slightly, and a soft, chilling chuckle escaped the mask. To leave? Or to learn? Choice has its price. Jessica's pulse surged as it leaned forward, the shadows behind it twisting and warping as if responding to a silent command. Noah, we need to go. She shrieked, but before they could turn, the door slammed shut with a resounding thud, sealing them. Inside, the darkness closed around them, and she knew then, this was only another layer of the nightmare. She could feel the air charged with malevolence, cloying and intoxicating. And deep in her gut, an unsettling realization arose. The whispers were not just calling to her, they knew her. They had been waiting for her to unlock the secrets hidden in the shadows of Grand Hollow. Mom! What do we do? Noah's wide eyes searched hers for answers she didn't have. Then, in the stillness, a faint echo of laughter trickled through the gas station's darkness, a familiar sound that chilled her to the bone. Jessica, it cooed, an ominous reminder that the town had a life of its own. You're never leaving. The power flickered, bathing the room in red, and in that instant, Jessica felt the weight of every choice she had ever made bearing down on her. Run! She yelled, but the whispers grew louder, drowning out her voice. They reached for the boy she loved, beckoning him with promises that ignited the deepest fears wrapped tightly in her heart. Run or stay. The figure rasped again. But either way, you cannot escape your truth. As the shadows loomed, each whisper feeling closer than the last, Jessica felt a pull towards something inescapable. The fury of the night pressed down on her as she grasped for Noah's hand, her mind racing. What truth did the town want to reveal? How long could they hide in this flickering light before the darkness consumed them? The tension snapped again, and shaking resolve surged as she turned toward the door, bracing for what awaited them beyond. And in that moment, the truth felt just out of reach, slipping further into a darkness she was struggling to comprehend. What was waiting for them outside? Would they find salvation, or would the very essence of Grand Hollow claim them as its own? Jessica's heart rattled in her chest as the reality of her surroundings engulfed her. The gas station felt like a tomb, shadows shifting behind every dusty rack. She clutched Noah's hand tighter, desperation clawing at her throat. Urgent whispers danced in her ears, swirling like a tempest, each word a thread tugging at her resolve. You can't escape. You must confront the truth. Noah, stay close to me. She snapped, pulling him back as the air thickened, almost tangible. Outside, the darkness coiled and flickered like something alive, waiting just beyond the brittle glow of the gas station. That twisted figure loomed larger in her mind, reminding her of the many faces from her past, faces shaded by guilt and loss. The gas station door thudded ominously behind them, a barrier now, but she had no illusions. It wouldn't hold against the night's insatiable hunger. "We need to find another way out," she whispered to Noah, swallowing her growing fear. His small face was pale, shadows under his eyes betraying his exhaustion and confusion. "Mom, I don't want to stay here," he whimpered, eyes darting around nervously. "I know," she urged, urgency fueling her next words. "We're going to get out. Together." As they moved to the back of the station, her mind raced through possibilities. Would running scream louder than hiding? Could they even outpace whatever malice pursued them? But the palpable tension filled her chest like a weight. The whispers were growing, resonating with her darkest memories, twisting into familiar forms. "Jessica, Jessica, no!" she shouted, shaking her head furiously, forcing the voice away. "Stop!" Each step echoing like a battle cry. "We are leaving." Suddenly, the lights above flickered forebodingly, casting eerie shadows that swayed like a silent audience awaiting her next move. Just beyond, she spotted a streak of light peeking through a cracked door at the far end. It seemed as if it beckoned to them, a fragile promise that might lead them away from this nightmare. "This way!" she commanded, urgency lifting her strained voice as she led Noah toward the light. They reached the door, a barrier of cracked wood and rotting hinges, splintering into darkness. As Jessica reached for the doorknob, it swung open with a squeal, as if someone had been waiting just on the other side. A flood of cool air washed over them, filled with scents of earth and moss. "Mom, please," Noah's voice broke. "I'm right here." She rushed through the door, the cold settling into her bones. They stepped out into a narrow alley, the overwhelming darkness of Grand Hollow whispering around them, suffocating the sounds of the outside world. But ahead lay hope, a distant echo of light where the alley opened up into what looked like a side street. Trembling, they hurried toward it, every nerve tingling with anticipation. "Stay close, Noah," she urged, the shadows threatening to swallow them whole. Jessica's instincts screamed that the whispers were growing more frantic, clawing at her resolve as they pressed forward. Yet with every step, that light pulled at them, an unyielding persistence, whispering in all the languages of past regrets, shadows of undesired truths waiting just behind. Inching out into the street, a sudden shout shattered the silence. "Stop! Come back!" The voice was chillingly familiar, sending a jolt of ice through her veins as she spun around, caught off guard by the figure emerging from the dark. Mr. Patterson, the disturbingly cheerful neighbor, standing with arms outstretched, an uncanny smile stretching across his face. "Join us, Jessica. You'll finally understand your place," he said, the words slithering like liquid poison, and behind him, shadows twisted into grotesque forms, chanting her name. "No!" she shouted as she shielded Noah behind her, heart pounding with every inch they retreated. "I won tea." But the pull of the darkness was evident, every shadow morphing into memories she thought she had escaped. They swarmed, figures dancing too close, lost children calling out with innocent voices, promising safety. "Noah, run!" she screamed with every ounce of energy as they sprinted into the cold embrace of the night, the shadows hissing threats behind them. But they didn't stop, they couldn't. As they reached the end of the street, Jessica spotted a flickering streetlight casting a weak glow over a path. They turned toward it, urging themselves forward. The shadows surged, swiping at their heels, fingers curling closer, tighter. "Keep running." Her voice echoed in the silence, desperation driving them forward. They veered down a lane lined with hedges, a desperate bid for escape. But just as the end of the path opened up into an expansive field, Jessica hesitated, holding Noah back. A low rumbling grew, the skies darkening as if the heavens themselves responded to their plight. In the expanse ahead, she could see something moving. A wave of shadow undulating in the dark. The trees shivered, their rustling whispering warnings embedded in every rustling leaf, every creaking bough. "Mom." Noah's voice quivered, clinging to her as if she could shield him from the encroaching darkness. But they had crossed an invisible threshold. Ahead, an immense shadow loomed, a portal to truths best left unspoken. "It's coming!" she yelled, dragging Noah behind her. The realization hit her hard. There was no escaping the consequences of her past. "We have to confront it." With renewed conviction, aided only by her growing rage at the darkness stalking them, Jessica charged forward. She reached the edge and stood firm, the twilight painting everything in hues of dread. Childlike figures danced in the void, pulling at her heartstrings, urging her to return, to accept, to embrace. "No!" she bellowed, fear erupting like flames. "I will not succumb. I will keep him safe. You hear me?" The memory figures whispered, angry storms brewing around them. But then, something shifted. Light surged from deep within her, spurred by a love that transcended the shadows. It roared with strength, pushing back fiercely against the encroaching darkness. "Not today!" she yelled, raising her hands, feeling the warm surge. And it responded, pouring into that inky void, illuminating and shattering the murkiness, revealing shadows that slinked back hissing like startled snakes until they gradually disappeared. With the darkness retreating, she felt the grip on Noah loosen, freeing him from the wayward grasp. He stared up at her, wonder overcoming fear, and she pulled him close. "That's it. We can go." She laughed, relief cascading through her. They turned toward the light that burst through in waves, beckoning them fiercely. As they dashed toward that sanctuary, she could feel the warmth of dawn brushing against them, washing over their skin in fresh light. And in that moment, everything ugly began to blur. The nightmares bled away as they raced into the shimmering light. They had chosen the light. They had faced the shadows. And as the last whispers of Grand Hollow faded into memory, Jessica and Noah stepped into a brighter world, one shaped by their resolve, their love fiercely forging a path away from the darkness. Jessica grasped Noah's hand, feeling its warmth, knowing they had reclaimed their truth. Together, they would conquer their fears, and hold on to the precious gift of light. As they took their first steps into this new dawn, Jessica turned to Noah, her heart swelling with triumph and love. "It's gonna be okay," she whispered, her voice etched with newfound strength. "Yes, it will, Mom," he replied with a smile, innocence shining brighter than any shadows behind. Now they could begin anew, forging a path filled with hope, with love, and with an unbreakable bond that would lead them infinitely forward. Now, at this moment, let's embrace the shift together. If you enjoyed this story, you need to subscribe now. Smash that like button so we can keep bringing you these exclusive tales. Flood the comments section with your thoughts or theories. I want to hear your reactions. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with 5 friends who believe in the power of stories. Join this journey, and let us keep exploring together.